Trump has his day in court again, and we have breaking news, like literally just in the last 15 minutes regarding that multi-million-dollar punitive fine against him. It's better news. I wouldn't call it good news, but we'll give you the details coming up in just a moment. Plus, a complete and total temper tantrum on the set of Meet the Press. Where journalists had to talk to a Republican. I'm kidding. It wasn't a Republican. It was Ronna McDaniel, but it's still entertaining to watch the fallout. We'll share that with you in just a moment. And continued repercussions from that unbelievable yet entirely believable chaotic scene down on the border. That video where people are plowing through the barriers to get into this country almost looked like an invasion, and Democrats are in complete denial. Actually, Democrats are completely encouraging the behavior. We'll give you all the gory details coming up in a moment. We're brought to you by the Electronic Payments Coalition. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Full of energy. It's Monday. I've been dying to get back out here. I'm so excited. I got a lot to get to. And before I do, I need you to subscribe to our videos. Please subscribe. You guys are loving it. You're loving our videos, and we appreciate how much traffic it's getting, how many views. And you even say, oh, I wish everybody saw this. Okay, well, you can do a big part of that if you subscribe. Hey, Kevin, what's more important, subscribing or liking these days? There was a time when liking was important. I mean, they should do both, but what do we want them to do?
Honestly, I'm going to give a third option. Click that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube or on Rumble.
There you go. Notification bell, baby. You should I get an alert. I get an alert when we go on. I get an alert when my friends go on. Seb Gorka. America First with Seb Gorka. My freaking phone, it lights up like there's a freaking flood coming. So do that. Do the alerts. Do the likes. Do the and guys, if you can just copy a link to a segment or an episode that you like and share it on your social media, that goes a long way. And that's all we ask. We don't ask any money from you. We just ask that support and undying love. And now I'm getting mushy and I got to move on. Let's get right to the news. Donald Trump showed up in New York. Today's the day where he's supposed to pay, what is it, $500 million, literally $500 million in this judgment made by one man. He never even got to talk to a jury. One man, one judge, this Engeram guy. Isn't that the thing that the Scientologists do when they're testing you to see if you're going to the next planet? Is that the Engerons or entrails? I don't know. I don't like talking about religion or Scientology for that matter. Anyway, here's Donald Trump showing up in New York, talking to the cameras before he gets into the courtroom.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. Thank you.
It's a bit of a mic drop moment. Yes, I'm glad you're here, everybody. I have something to say. This whole thing is a hoax. That said, just moments ago, he did post on his Truth social media platform, which, by the way, is about to make him several $billions. God, I should have gotten in on that. Cash Patel, Devin Nunes, Larry, you want a piece? Like, nah, it's all right. I'm going to stick with my mutual funds. Again. Anyway, he says, Judge Engeron, that's his name. It's not entrails, it's Engeron. That makes much more sense. Judge Engeron has refused to obey the decision of the appellate division relative to the statute of limitations. This is a confrontation between a judge and those that rule above him. A very bad situation in which to place New York State and the rule of law. Basically, what he's saying is this whole thing is going to get overturned. The judge has made so many mistakes and gone against the appellate judge above him. But see, that's not the point, because by the time this gets overturned on appeals, it'll be 2026, 2 years into Joe Biden's second term. That's what they want. Or, God forbid, Kamala Harris's first term. All right, back to the Post. Engeron has disrespected the appellate division and its very clear and precise ruling. He should be made to do so, and at the same time, release the gag order. This is the fifth time in this case that he has been overturned, a record. His credibility and that of Letitia James has been shattered. We will abide by the decision of the appellate division and post either a bond, equivalent securities, or cash. This also shows how ridiculous and outrageous Engeron's original decision was at $450 million. I did nothing wrong, and New York should never be put in a position like this again. Businesses are fleeing, violent crime is flourishing, and it is very important that this be resolved in its totality as soon as possible. Thank you. So yes, the decision now, as you can see from our buddy Benny Johnson. Hi, Benny. How's it going, dude? Good to see you, man. Nice hair. Betty Johnson says that the bond in New York City fraud trial has been decreased from the $545 million total to $175 million. That's hours before it was due. So that's the latest. Now you're up to speed, and he is going to post that bond. He's going to be able to go out. Last week, he said he's got like $500 million at his disposal. He says he was going to use it on the campaign. We shall see how much of that he can use on his campaign and how much he can continue to raise. And I mentioned True Social, when it goes public later this month, is going to net him a couple of $1 billion too. He's not doing too poorly for himself, considering all of the lawsuits and fake criminal activity they're throwing his way. The bigger question is, frankly, how does this affect our election? How does this affect who our next president is going to be? How does it affect the people's mood in this country? Well, I'm not a huge fan of Frank Luntz. He's the guy who does all those test marketing things, focus groups. He puts a bunch of people in a room and they turn a dial while they're watching a speech, whether they like it or don't like it. And then he takes all that information and talks to a politician. This is what people like. And then the politician, of course, just repeats what people like instead of, being a leader. It's one of the banes of American politics these days, and Frank Luntz was at the forefront of it. He always used to call himself a conservative, but he's not. So given the fact that I'm not a huge fan of him, it tells you something that I'm going to share this clip of him because I think he's spot on with it. He walked into the Lion's Den, and he was that one guy on the CNN panel who dared to disagree with everybody else. By the way, they won't be inviting him back anytime soon. The reason he was there is because they expected him to be, a Trump basher like he usually is, but he nailed it on Saturday.
I want you to remember this moment, and don't forget it. If the New York Attorney General starts to take his homes away, starts to seize his assets, it's all going to be on camera. Pundits are going to sit there and scream about this. This man cannot be elected. You're going to create the greatest victimhood of 2024, and you're going to elect Donald Trump. If they take his stuff, he's going to say that this is proof that the federal government and the establishment and the swamp in Washington and all the politicians across the country and the attorneys generals and all of this, that this is a conspiracy to deny him the presidency. He's going to go up in the polls just like he went up every single time they indicted him.
Well, he's right. And by the way, the reason why I say he's spot on here is because it brings Frank Luntz no joy to deliver this message. I mean, he's talking like he's going to a friend's funeral or something, right? He's not happy about this. He doesn't want Trump to be president. What are you doing? You're handing him the election, you people. Stop. He sees it. He gets it. And he's absolutely right. Because most Americans are not watching this day by day. If they are, then they're even more outraged. Most Americans are not watching it like the viewers of CNN and MSNBC, and for that matter, the hosts and producers at CNN and MSNBC, who are watching this almost like like it's pornography, like it's a snuff film. The bad guys getting slaughtered and tortured excruciatingly. They pop the popcorn and they actually enjoy this. They have fun with this. They actually are delighting in the suffering and the despair that Donald Trump, they think, is experiencing, although Trump has sort of stayed above it all. I mean, for Trump, most Americans are not watching it at all. And if they are watching it and they tune in, they're like, what are you talking about? You can't do this to people in this country. For God's sake, he was just president. Now he's running for president. What did he do again? Who was the victim in this whole financial thing where he has to now pay $500 million? Who was the victim? There are no victims. Literally. We're told he defrauded banks, and the banks are like, I want to do more business with this guy. Defraud me some more, Donald. Newt Gingrich on Fox News put it very beautifully and sadly, dramatically, but succinctly.
And what you're watching is a financial assassination. This is a deliberate effort to destroy somebody because they're a presidential candidate. And I think the country understands that. And I think the country, most people, are enraged that the rule of law could degenerate into this kind of rule of power.
I mean, Newt, where are the other real estate executives in New York? Where are the bankers in New York coming to Trump's defense to say, look, there were no victims here? Where are these people who see this unfairness coming and speaking out? I don't hear anybody.
Right, because what they know is they could be next.
That's exactly it. This is tyranny. This is authoritarianism. This is, yeah, we're gonna kill this guy. We're gonna financially assassinate him. Don't get your panties in a wad. I didn't actually say that they were coming. I'm using Newt's words. Financial assassination. We're gonna go after this guy because we don't like him and he stands in our way and he's mean and he tweets things. But you keep your mouth shut about it though, because you're next. You know we're next because we're proving we've got the power to do this. So here we go. We're going to take him out on the street. We're going to put him right in the middle of the street. And here's the firing squad, the financial firing squad. And boom, he's dead. And you all saw it, right? This is a public execution. We're doing this on purpose. So you can all see it. Now keep your mouth shut, keep your head down, and don't cross us, or you're next. Newt's 100% right. But here's the thing. I just said that most people aren't watching it like that. Most people aren't watching this like it's porn, like they work at MSNBC, or even worse, don't have a job, live in mom's basement and watch MSNBC. Most people aren't watching it like they're super duper like huge Trump supporters, and they're watching it like they're watching a, you know, like they're watching their favorite sports team having to fight back from a deficit in the fourth quarter, but they know that their guys are going to win. Let's say the Eagles, because they're, you know, no, let's not. I don't mean to go off the tangent. All right. Most people aren't watching it because most Americans right now, if they're even thinking about the presidential election, are kind of, this again, right? Have you heard that from your friends? Not your friends that are plugged in and politically and ready to go and walk across broken glass to vote for their guy. I'm talking about most Americans who don't live and die by politics every day. They're like, oh, wait, it's going to be Biden and Trump again? Oh, really? Okay, fine. See, here's the thing, because everyone's like, oh, these people have such fatigue. They're going to have to do something. Trump's going to have to do something to get these people over. No, actually, he doesn't. The fatigue is fine. Guess what? The people who are fatigued, they're not going to vote. Screw them. Honestly, you know what this election is going to be about? This election is going to be about the passionate ones. Who's most passionate for their candidate? This election will be a broken glass election. Which side is willing to walk again across broken glass to go and cast a ballot for their guy? Which side can't wait to get to the first day that they can vote? And based on some recent polling that Byron York at the Examiner has analyzed, if it's a broken glass election, if it's a walkover hot coals election, if it's a I don't care what happens, I am so fervently in favor of my candidate, I can't wait to cast that ballot election, Trump wins in a landslide. New polling, Byron reports, shows the super intensity around Trump. Republicans voting for him more than against Biden. Democrats are voting against Trump more than they're voting for Biden. What does that mean? It's a lot easier to get people to get out and vote when they're voting for someone than it is when they're voting to oppose someone. Ask any political analyst. Don't believe me? Go back and watch those cathartically wonderful videos of election night 2016, when the Hillary Clinton supporters were like, yeah, we don't really like her, but we don't like Trump, and it'll be nice to have our first woman president. And that was about it. That's all they had going for them. And what happened? How many people do you know who woke up the next day saying, I thought she was going to win. I thought it was in the bag. I thought it was over. I thought, right? Right now, if you poll people, that's why 2020 was so important, because they knew they weren't going to get people fervently excited for Biden. And it wasn't enough to have people vote against Trump. So that's why we had a pandemic. Oh, this election is going to be unlike any other election. Boy, it sure was. It sure was. Do you want to know how scared the Democrats are right now? It's always good to check in with Mr. Democrat, the one and only James Carville. Was it Lizard Head? Was that his nickname that Rush used to call him? Rush used to call him that, by the way, because James Carville's wife, Republican political strategist Mary Madeline, used to call him that. Say what you will about James Carville, he's not dumb. And he knows how to get people elected, and he can read the current temperature and situation in the country when it comes to an election. He has an op-ed in the New York Times where he says Biden's losing support because, quote, A suspicion of mine is that there are too many preachy females. Don't drink beer. Don't watch football. Don't eat hamburgers. This is not good for you. If you listen to Democratic elites, NPR is my go-to place for that. Basically, it's the culture war. It's, oh, don't say that about transgender things. In fact, accept the transgenderisms that we're going to push down your throat. And don't drive that kind of car. You've got to have an electric vehicle. And don't be burning those carbons. And don't be, as he said, don't drink beer. Don't. This is what the party has become, because, as I've mentioned before on other shows, that's the only demographic they've got, is unmarried women who are angry at you, or as he puts it, preachy females. He's not wrong. And by the way, of course, it received a swift reaction from a preachy female. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't like what James Carville had to say and said, maybe he should start a podcast about it. I hear men are really underrepresented in that space. It's funny. I mean, I would take issue with James Carville here because I don't think it's preachy females necessarily, because the fact of the matter is you don't have to be a woman, even if you can't define it, to be a preachy female Democrat. I mean, honestly, between Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and George Stephanopoulos and Anderson Cooper, Joe Scarborough, they're the preachiest females out there right now. I think he was just mentioning preachy female as sort of a tone that he hears from this party who wants to control everything in your life. And if you complain about it, they're going to start throwing a temper tantrum and screaming and crying about it. Frankly, thankfully, I and most conservative men I know, we don't have any women in our lives like that. Conservative women rock. Am I right, guys and ladies? Right? Conservative women rock. Tell me in the comments. Go ahead. Just thought to throw that out there too. James Carville, by the way, did show up to try to redeem himself. He's really doing the rounds these days, Jimmy Boy is. He was on the aforementioned preachy female Anderson Cooper show and said something disconcerting.
You are a proponent of the president and all his spokespeople in the campaign doing that more and more.
Yeah, not so much him. I mean, be candid, Anderson, President Biden is not the best attack politician I've ever seen in my life, and I'll leave it at that. But there are a lot of people to do what I call, quote, the wet work, unquote. And I think
like
he
a
needs
mob
to
hit.
stay sort of a, yeah, well, it's kind of, but it's a paid TV and stuff like that. But yes, a CIA term.
Yeah, a CIA term. You know what wet work is? I read a lot of these novels, you know, Tom Clancy and Vince Flynn and Brad Thor and Jack Carr. Wet work? You know what wet work is? Assassination. That's what they call wet work. It's assassination. Anderson chuckled at that. I do like it when Anderson giggles at things. He's such a cutie pie. Yeah. James Carville is advocating for people in the Biden camp to do the wet work against Donald Trump. Remember when we were told we're not supposed to have outrageous, violent rhetoric when we talk about politics in this country? Apparently, those rules only go one way. I will hand it to James Carville, though. He's right. He absolutely is right. And not with regard to Biden, but with regard to Trump. My biggest complaint about Trump campaigns and the Trump White House, for that matter, is that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and now Joe Biden, they've got James Carvilles in their lives who do all the dirty work for them, who do all the wet work for them. And then the Clinton and Obama, they can stay above it all. It's like, oh, well, you know, those guys. Oh, I don't get involved in that sort of dirty politics thing. I'm above it. I'm a statesman, right? I mean, James Carville is an assassin. He is a political assassin with his words and with his tactics. And these Democrats always have a whole host of people who will go out there and say the most volatile, rude, horrific, devastating things about Republicans. And Trump, what's Trump got? Trump does it himself. Stay above it all. He gets right down in the dirt with it. And I know we love it about him, but also sometimes it's not a good look. Especially when you're trying to be this, you know, guy that represents everyone. He should have other people who can do that work for him. He should hire James Carville. I mean, he'll do anything for a buck, won't he? The bottom line here, though, not just on this story, but our next story about the media, is that they're in trouble and they know it. They're in major trouble. And frankly, what you're seeing play out this week in the courts ends up being a horrific backfire boomerang on their face. Because again, broken glass election. You can't wait, right? Tell me I'm wrong. You cannot wait to walk over broken glass to vote. You hate the fact that you've got to wait, 7.5 months now until you get the chance. Democrats aren't like that right now. Would you walk over broken glass for Joe Biden? Would you walk over marshmallows for Joe Biden? Would you even get up to walk anywhere for Joe Biden? Imagine being a Democrat right now. Just imagine. Quick word from our friends at handsoffmyrewards.com. That's handsoffmyrewards.com. Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. Corporate mega stores want to take those rewards away. Rewards that we use on groceries and school supplies. The cashback to save on gas and grow our small businesses. These rewards are important. Travel miles that we use to make memories. But the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill, it's going to eliminate credit card rewards. No more travel miles, no more cashback. When lawmakers help corporate mega stores line their pockets, American families pay for it. And that's just wrong. You know it. I know it. Even James Carville knows it, I'm guessing. Maybe not. But why don't you get more information about this? Tell your senator to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Just go to handsoffmyrewards.com. All the details are there and the tools for you to take action today. That's handsoffmyrewards.com. So yesterday on Meet the Press, they're still doing that thing, by the way, apparently. Meet the Press. Yeah, it's still a thing. Who knew? Who knew? Kristen Welker is the host there, and she delivered an extraordinary opening segment explaining to her audience, apologizing to her audience, not just about a guest that she had booked, but the fact that that guest is now actually on the NBC News payroll. We're talking about former chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. And this was the beginning of an extraordinary sequence of events on Meet the Press that we're going to show for you because I know you don't watch it, but you need to see this.
I'll be joined by former RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel in her first interview since stepping down as party chair. In full disclosure to our viewers, this interview was scheduled weeks before it was announced that McDaniel would become a paid NBC News contributor. This will be a news interview, and I was not involved in her hiring. This week, we learned just how much Trump's grip on the Republican Party is impacting the GOP's bottom line.
I love the transition there, too. It was gorgeous cinematography there with the dramatic swoop and zoom. I was not involved in her hiring, and this will be a news interview, just so you know. Now to my complete and total unbiased, fact-based news reporting. Trump has a grip on the Republican Party. And it goes on. Yeah, so Ronna McDaniel leaves the RNC and goes to work for NBC News as a contributor, as a person to bring on and lend her expertise to the Meet the Press panel or on all the news shows on MSNBC and I guess on election night or NBC News Nightly or whatever. After the interview, Kristen Welker's predecessor, Chuck Todd, comes onto the table to denounce the executives at NBC News for hiring this woman in the first place.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination. So it is, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And if you told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention, I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately, this interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for?
Now, I will get back to Chuck in a minute, but I'm pretty sure he just said that he's willing to have a conversation about the journalistic ethics involved here. Now, there's a lot of paths we can go down here, Chuck, with regard to the journalistic ethics involved in your career, because we could spend the next, 8, 9, 10 hours filling this program with you pushing the Russian collusion hoax on your viewers, the lies about the Steele dossier. How about the lies about the effectiveness of the vaccine, the COVID shot that you were forcing on American people and publicly shaming them every day if they didn't get the shot, or anything else related to COVID-19. Oh, wait a minute. Let's do that big segment you did. Chuck, could you roll the segment out that you did on the Hunter Biden laptop story and how 51 intelligence agents said that it was Russian disinformation, so it shouldn't be talked about? Yeah, we could talk about that too, couldn't we? And it goes on and on and on. The journalistic ethics involved in Chuck Todd's oversight of NBC News out of the Washington, D.C. Bureau is absolutely stunning and beautiful. But you know what? Let's not go there, Chuck, because like I said, it's hours of coverage, just hours. You know what? Instead, let's turn to another one of your colleagues who not only is a contributor to NBC News, but she's got her own show over on MSNBC. Her name is Jen Psaki. Now, maybe you remember Jen Psaki's name. Chuck, help me out here because you're the master of journalistic ethics, right? Chuck, Jen Psaki, before she got the job at NBC News, didn't she stand up at the podium at Joe Biden's White House on a daily basis and lie to the American people? Chuck, I know, was very concerned about Ronna McDaniel and whether she was gaslighting the professionals at NBC News. They've got professionals over there at NBC News. That she was gaslighting them, right, Chuck? Is that the word you use? Gaslighting them about Trump and about Republicans and elections and policies. Jen Psaki, not working for a political committee, mind you, but working for the White House, getting a tax dollar paycheck, stood at the podium of the White House speaking on behalf of the U.S. government, and she lied about Hunter Biden and the crimes that he committed and what Joe Biden knew about it. Lied about Hunter Biden's art sales. Remember, this is going to get a full ethics review on this. Don't worry about that. Lied about whether the border was closed. Oh, absolutely. The border is secure, Jen Psaki told us time and time again. Jen Psaki lied about the Biden administration's censorship. Oh, Mr. Journalistic Ethics and champion of the First Amendment, Chuck Todd, can we get your colleague Jen Psaki on to tell us about the fact that she and her White House colluded with social media companies to censor and delete accounts because people dared to have a second opinion? I'm talking about doctors, literal doctors from Yale, from Stanford, who said this keeping schools closed during COVID is bull. That's not doing anything. It's just harming kids. This lockdown is not only killing our economy, but it's keeping people from going and getting cancer screenings. More people will die because of this. More people will die because of the vaccine mandates. Oh, and by the way, the mandated shot doesn't actually do what the government is telling us to do. Jen Psaki and her White House was involved in the censorship of all of that on social media, pressuring other journalists to not cover those stories, and then lied about it from the podium. And Chuck, she's right down the hall from you right now, dude. You're worried about a woman who ran a political committee for spinning things? Look at that smile on your face. I'm more than willing to have the conversation about the journalistic ethics here. You're right, though. That's not fair. Let's not talk to Jen Psaki. How about we talk to Simone Sanders, who just recently worked for Kamala Harris in the vice president's communication shop. And before that, during the campaign, she was the spokesperson for Bernie Sanders. But now she works as a paid journalist for NBC News. Oh, wait a minute. Did I mention Bernie Sanders? Because Chuck, back to you, Chuck. This is actually about you, or more specifically, about your wife. Did you know that Chuck Todd's wife was actually a top paid political strategist for Bernie Sanders? Now I know why you're smiling, Chuck. Well, look at you, you dog. Bernie Sanders, when we know about those Bernie Sanders girls, right? Hey, remember that really great interview that Chuck Todd had with Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota? She ran for president back in 2020. Do you remember it? Oh, sure. Chuck had all of the political candidates on, but he definitely had Amy Klobuchar on. Why? Well, because Amy Klobuchar is actually Chuck Todd's tenant. Sure, Chuck, why didn't you reveal that? Chuck Todd owns a townhouse in Arlington, Virginia, that he rents out to Senator Amy Klobuchar. And then, whoop, there she is on the show. That's pretty cool. I wonder if she asked for a break on the rent, or I wonder if you charged more that month. Journalistic ethics. All the journalistic ethics going on over there. I'd say that Meet the Press is really a sad shell of what it used to be, because you'll hear people all day long today on cable news and radio and stuff. Oh, Tim Russert is rolling over in his grave. Tim Russert is rolling over in his grave. Tim Russert was a political advisor for then Governor Mario Cuomo. Yeah, the father of Andrew Cuomo and Chris Cuomo. This is nothing new. Let's ask Jake Tapper about it. Oh, Jake Tapper also worked for a Democrat congressman. And so did Chuck. Chuck Todd worked for a Democrat. This is all complete and total asinine hypocrisy. It's what my mentor, Andrew Breitbart, right there, used to call the Democrat media complex, the revolving door. You work in the media today, you work in the White House tomorrow. You work on Capitol Hill for a Democrat today, you work on cable news tomorrow. But, you know, once they get the job doing journalistic ethics, there's a firewall there. None of it influences anything, right? Right, George Stephanopoulos? And so there's one person makes their way onto a network show, Ronna McDaniel. We'll get to her in a minute, because the fact that they're losing their mind over her, of all people. One person makes her way onto television, and they all go completely insane. Speaking of insane, you know these two had to chime in about it. You know, these two had to make the story about themselves. You know, I don't want to be mean. Actually, I think I do want to be mean. What's going on with Mika Brzezinski? You remember how everyone was like, that's not really Kate Middleton. That's not really Kate Middleton. What's going on? This is a camera trick. They've got a body double. I think Kate Middleton is on set with Joe Scarborough wearing a Mika Brzezinski mask. Or, if I may, Prince Harry is on the set wearing a Mika Brzezinski. What's going on with her? There's kind of a trans vibe going on there. Am I wrong? That looks like a dude dressed up like Mika Brzezinski. A dude in drag going as Mika Brzezinski for Halloween. All right. Remember what I said? I didn't want to be mean. Fake news. All right. Let's hear what their reaction was this morning.
Let's talk about the hiring of former RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel.
Well, she was on Sunday's Meet the Press. It was her first appearance since NBC News hired her as a political analyst. I know you won't be surprised to know that we've been inundated with calls this weekend, as have most people connected with this network, about NBC's decision to hire her. We learned about the hiring when we read about it in the press on Friday. We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, including, but not limited to, as lawyers might say, Ms. McDaniel's role in Donald Trump's fake elector scheme and her pressuring election officials to not certify election results while Donald Trump was on the phone.
To be clear, we believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to.
Sure you do. Honestly, I forgot how funny this show is. To be clear, we think NBC, really, so they think NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices. Well, you know what's funny? If they had their own show every day, they could roll out the red carpet and they could populate the set with conservative Republican voices, couldn't they? Oh, wait, they do have their own show. The only conservative Republican voice allowed on that show is somebody to the left of Joe Scarborough, which is saying something considering he's growing out a Karl Marx beard next week. We think NBC News should hire many conservative Republican voices. Now let's turn to analysis with Reverend Al Sharpton. Absolutely unwatchable. By the way, NBC News, talk about the lunatics running the asylum. First, you hire this person. God knows how much money they gave Ronna McDaniel. Then her first booking on Meet the Press, it's anarchy. They have a temper tantrum on the air and call out the executive. They should have never hired her. They should have never put you in this place to have to interview her. And then this breaks from Daily Mail. MSNBC won't book her. MSNBC is not going to book her for any of the shows on their network. So you're NBC News, you hire this person, and now she gets completely, if I were her, I wouldn't go on Meet the Press after that display, right? So what she get, whatever money you paid for her, you probably expect her to, well, she'll be a regular on Morning Joe, she'll be on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, maybe she'll hang out with, somebody midday on MSNBC, and then, once a month, she'll do Meet the Press, and then she'll be with us for the convention and the election night. Now, all you got is convention and election night, if that. Which brings us to Ronna McDaniel. Because lost in all of this is her actual appearance on Meet the Press. I mean, what did she say? And you'll be happy to know that it's exactly confirmation of who you've always known Ronna McDaniel to be.
Let's dive right into this and start with your decision to step down as RNC chair. If you can, take me behind the scenes a little bit. Were you pushed out of your role?
Well, there's no question that as RNC chair, you have to remain neutral. And we had a primary process. And so we did have debates, right? We had debates and there was tension and a little friction that started during that process. It was well played out in the media. And I knew at that point when I was doing that role and we were going to have debates that when the nominee came forward and it was likely to be President Trump, that they would want to switch. And that's his right as nominee.
And so were you pushed out by him?
He absolutely wanted me to move aside and wanted Michael Whatley and Lara Trump to come.
Hey, speaking of debates, we had debates. Hey, Kevin, a disembodied voice of producer of this show. Kevin, you there?
Yes, sir.
We saw Ronna McDaniel at the debate down in Miami, didn't we?
We absolutely did. We chatted with her.
We did a live stream from the spin room there, and she revealed on the air, completely unprovoked, that she had no contribution to the unsuccessful Virginia election last November. It was the day after the election, if I remember right. And she claimed that Glenn Youngkin and the Republican Party of Virginia said they didn't want any money from the RNC. And of course, that was denied, right? That all happened then?
Yeah, that was strange, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure was. Sort of the beginning of the end in this last string for her. But help me out here. That debate down in Miami, that was the one where Vivek Ramaswamy called her out from the stage, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, what network was that debate on?
You know, I'm going to have to go ahead and say it was ABC.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I hate to do this to you. It was NBC News.
Oh, excuse me.
Same network that employed her.
You know, I remember Kristen Welker was the moderator.
That's right. There she is. Kristen Welker was the moderator. In fact, it really elevated Kristen Welker's stature by being able to be the moderator of that debate that Ronna McDaniel was responsible for, that was in charge of, right? I wonder if there were any conversations between these two bastions and champions of journalistic ethics. I wonder if they had any conversation that night at the debate about Ronna McDaniel's future plans. I wonder if anybody from NBC News spoke with Ronna McDaniel that night when she was still chairwoman of the RNC about whether she might fit in with NBC News and her new pal there, Kristen Welker. It's curious, isn't it?
It's hilarious because I distinctly remember that both of these women were prime targets for Vivek Ramaswamy from the debate stage.
Vivek went after both of them, and they had that in common. Maybe they bonded over it.
Yeah.
Now there they are working together. But it's all about the journalistic ethics, Kevin. Disembodied voice, Kevin. Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's really something. Here's the bottom line here. Ronna McDaniel is a Beltway political functionary. She was the chairperson of a political committee, a party, doesn't really do much. Can I prove to you how overblown the importance of Ronna McDaniel and this big reaction about Ronna McDaniel is from the media and the Democrats? I'm going to prove it to you. Can you name me the chair of the Democratic National Committee of the DNC? Do you know who it is? Do you have any idea who it is? Right? You have no idea who the chair of the DNC is. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Why? Because when you're the chair of the DNC, you don't have every single person in the mainstream media lined up to destroy you, like when you're the chair of the RNC. If they really cared about politics and they delivered news and information to the American people about everything going on in politics, then wouldn't they be talking to the DNC chair just as much as the RNC? And you couldn't even tell me who the DNC chair is. Ronna McDaniel is an inside the Beltway political functionary. She's not an ideologue. She's not a champion of basic conservative ideas and principles. She's not even an expert on how to win an election, clearly. This is how NBC News, Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, MSNBC, Morning Joe, and everybody over there at the Proud as a Peacock Network, this is how they react to Ronna McDaniel. Imagine, Joe Scarborough, we really think they should hire more conservative Republicans. Imagine hiring somebody that actually has an opinion, a strong opinion, who can effectively communicate that idea. Imagine how they would react. And we can imagine how they would react. We know exactly how they would react. And so do the executives at NBC News. That's why the one person they do hire is someone like Ronna McDaniel. And they still go nuts. And that's why you will never actually see anything coming to the close to equal time or equal voices expressing ideas that reflect what you believe and what you think and what your life is like and how you vote and what candidates you support. That's why. Because they don't care about you, and they don't even care about their audience. They care about keeping their preening, self-important superstars at bay. And you just saw them flex a little bit of their muscle this weekend. But all of this translates into one very important lesson. If they get this upset about Ronna McDaniel and they can't handle having her voice among, 50 on that network, it tells you how isolated they are right now and how they can't even support their own positions with a modicum, with one voice who doesn't even express herself in any sort of principled conservative way, and they still shrink in terror and scream and have a temper tantrum. They're losing. And they're losing so bad that they can't even put up an argument or a fight against Ronna McDaniel. This is going to be a really fun 9 months ahead of us. A quick word from our friends over at Birch Gold Group. Now, I want to tell you about some financial experts looking at the lay of the land right now. Financial experts thought we were going to be in the clear with regard to interest rates. I don't know if you saw the latest meeting of the Fed. They were anticipating around 6 rate cuts this year by the Fed. And then the inflation data came out, and it was higher than expected, of course. And this is not going away. The Fed has now revamped how many cuts they're going to do this year. They didn't do a cut this last time. The U.S. is currently $34 trillion in the hole. Yet we keep printing money, and that pushes prices you pay every day even higher. You can either bury your head in the sand about this, or you can be smart and you can do something about it. You should diversify a portion of your savings into gold with Birch Gold Group. Gold is your hedge against inflation, and Birch Gold makes it easy to own. They'll help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. And then you don't pay a penny out of pocket for that conversion process. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied customers. You can trust Birch Gold too. Here's what you do to get more information. Text Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, text Larry to 989898. If we got that on the screen, yeah, we do. Right there. Text Larry to 989898. You'll get a free info kit on gold. Then talk to a precious metal specialist on how to protect your savings from persistent inflation with gold. Text Larry to 989898. Do it right now. All right, no doubt you have seen this footage from our southern border. It was captured by a team with the New York Post led by reporter Jenny Terre, who's just recently been with the Daily Caller News Foundation, now working for the Post. Look at that. All right, so thank you, New York Post. That was stunning. In fact, you know what? While we're talking about this, we can just let it play there if we want. So what you saw there, I'm sure you've seen this by now, but let's talk through it for a minute because you had a temporary fence with razor wire that they handled quite easily. Did you notice these are hundreds of illegal immigrants demanding entry into this country? Did you notice they're all about the same age? They're all men. They're all about the same build. They're all pretty agile. Did you also notice that when they pushed through that fence, they ran and ran and ran until they hit that? What's that? Oh, yeah. That's the wall that Donald Trump built. You know, the wall that doesn't work. The wall that wouldn't make a difference. They're running. They push through the fence. They're running, and then whap. Right into a wall. Now, sadly, because Joe Biden is the president and he's in charge of the Border Patrol, that gate, that entrance, the door, the locked door right in the wall, as you see it right there, yeah, they're going to open it and let them in an orderly way, one by one, because that's our border security policy right now. Our border security policy is these hordes of people who are plowing through a fence and charging into our country in what can only be described as, what's the word I'm looking for? Invasion. Our border security policy is, well, at the very least, stand in line and come in one at a time. It's an unbelievable video, and reporters over at Fox News caught congressmen Friday afternoon after the video broke, as these congressmen were leaving the House of Representatives and trying to get back to their airport so they can get to their constituents. And they were asked about the video and about the situation. And, well, I want you to see what they had to say.
Look at this video. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video.
I'm playing it right now.
Yeah, all right, thank you. There are border solutions that need to happen. We all agree, Republicans and Democrats both agree that border solutions are important.
The key thing is we actually have to reform immigration policy because the more legal pathways we have, the less chaos we have at the border.
Look at this video. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I haven't seen the video.
I'm playing it right now.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
I think that's my favorite part. You know, you should see this video down at the border. It's pretty dramatic. Yeah, I haven't seen the video. I'm showing it to you right now. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thanks for playing. They don't care. They don't care. And if they do stop to say anything, it's like, well, that's why we should have passed that bill. And then no one's buying that. It's all BS. And it's awful. And you're suffering because of it. They have no answers. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. And they know that. So let's see how Karine Jean-Pierre addressed the crisis from the podium at the White House. This is Karine Jean-Pierre, what she looks like before she gets her next job on CNN. Or will it be ABC? CBS, maybe? Maybe they'll build a network around her Well, either way, this is the job she has before that next step.
Has the president seen that dramatic video of migrants surging past National Guardsmen in Texas and in El Paso?
I mean, look, I have not spoken to the president about that video. What I can say is this, I really truly believe that's a question for, the Republican governor of Texas, right? This is something that he should address, that he should actually speak to. The president has worked with Congress in the Senate, as I just spoke to, about getting an immigration bill done, making sure that we deal with the border challenges that we see, that we're now seeing, and you have a governor of Texas who has continued to politicize this.
Now we're seeing the border challenges that we're now seeing. No, we've been seeing it since the day you were sworn in. And it's not a challenge, it's a crisis. It's a complete and total catastrophe. Let's just get this straight. The spokesperson for the White House has asked if the president, head of the executive branch of the federal government in charge of border security and national security, if he has seen the video of the illegal immigrants storming through a barricade, pushing past armed military personnel to demand entry into the country. And she says that's a question for the governor of Texas. Last I checked, it was the Biden administration suing the governor of Texas, demanding that he step down, back off, and not do anything about the border, because the border and national security and the protection of our international border is the sole purview and responsibility of, you guessed it, the president of the United States. So now the president's asked about a breach of that border, and she says, ask the governor of Texas. You can't make it up with these people. They have no shame. But the questioning continued, and the shameless responses continued.
So we've done the work. We have done the work. And we need more. Yes, we were able to secure more funding for DHS with this budget deal, but we need more resources. We do. And so there is an agreement. There is an agreement that took 2 months to get to. I don't know. It's up to them. They have to answer that question.
Still passing the buck to Republicans. It's amazing. And of course, everybody sees through that lie. The American people see through it. They ask a poll after poll after poll, and everybody knows who's responsible for the bill. Oh, we worked 2 months for it. This is over 3 years in the making. You worked 2 months on a bill. And that bill, I don't even want to relitigate what the bill is. You know how bad that bill was? Even Mitch McConnell wouldn't bring it up for a vote. Why did Republicans even talk to them? Honestly, I don't know what it is about Washington, D.C. They get this bizarre mentality that Democrats don't hate them. And all they've got to do is turn on television every night and see that they do, in fact, hate them. And I hope this is a life lesson for people like James Lankford about whether they should sit and negotiate with Democrats about something this critical and this important. Hell, they did this to Ronald Reagan back in '87. Does no one read history? You know what? We should do a special show. I saw one of our great online Rumble viewers giving us a comment here. Where were you Friday? We only do Monday through Thursday here. We do we're 4 days a week on this show. And don't whine about it. There's some podcasts who only do like 2 days a week, all right? We do 4 days. What more do you want from me? But I've been thinking more and more, disembodied voice, Kevin, that we should work on like Friday specials. Maybe, pre-recorded, thought out, sort of just one topic shows. Like I would love to do a half an hour on the history of border and immigration and how we got here. It goes all the way back to the 60s, actually, with Ted Kennedy and their reworking of immigration policies. It led to the amnesty deal of 1987 when Ronald Reagan was dragged kicking and screaming to sign the amnesty deal. It gave amnesty to illegal immigrants in this country, one-time only amnesty, but in exchange for it, Reagan would only sign it. He didn't want to sign it, but he only signed it if the Democrats would commit to building a wall and enforcing border security on our southern border so there would never be any illegal crossings again. How'd that work out? Shockingly, the Democrats lied and went back on their deal. We should do that. Remind me, that's another thing we should do, Kevin. You can do that? He's a disembodied voice. Sometimes his disembodied voice is completely not so disembodied you can't even hear him. All right. Then Ducey jumped in here from Fox News on the border.
Thank you. So on this border video, what does President Biden think should happen to adult men who are assaulting and overpowering U.S. National Guardsmen?
Well, let me just first say we're grateful, and I said this moments ago, to Border Patrol agents for their to quickly work and get the situation under control and apprehend the migrants. So I want to be really clear that everyone who was apprehended by Border Patrol. They were able to do their job, even though it's made it more. Even though Republican governor, in particular Governor Abbott, has made it difficult for them. They need more resources. We need more personnel. I mean, we have to have the backs of our law enforcement on the ground who are dealing with this every day. But Republicans are getting in the way. Republicans in Congress do not want to help. And you have a Governor Abbott, who's politicizing it. That is what's happening. Border Patrol agents did their job, even though the governor is getting in the way of them doing their job.
The question was, what should happen to the illegal immigrants who overran and assaulted Border Patrol agents to demand entry into this country? And the answer was, we need more money from Republicans. Blame the governor of Texas. It's just, it's insulting is what it is. And it's amateur hour. But this is all they got. This is why I keep saying that we are winning on these issues. When that's the best answer they've got, we're winning. And then there's a horrific answer from the governor of Massachusetts. Governor of Massachusetts was asked to respond to the arrest of an illegal immigrant who was arrested for child rape at a shelter in Rockland, Massachusetts. And she was asked, what can be done to keep this from happening again? And here's her response.
He asked Governor Healey if she can prevent this type of incident from happening again.
Unfortunately, we have security and systems in place. We have vetting in place. It is unfortunate that from time to time things will happen.
Things will happen? Things will happen? A child was sexually assaulted, and her response is, things will happen? Oh, we have vetting in place. You do? Really? I keep hearing that these people are undocumented. So how exactly do you vet someone that literally has no documents? How do you vet somebody? All right, what's your name? What's your social security? Oh, that's right. You don't have a social security number. Well, what country are you from? Okay, so can we access the criminal records in that country? And like he's going to really give his name, his actual name, his real name? Sorry, I don't have a document. They're not vetting anyone. And look at the attitude from it, not just the things will happen, but watch the blasé sort of as she shrugs her shoulders.
Unfortunately, we have security and systems in place. We have vetting in place. It is unfortunate that from time to time things will happen.
Things will happen. What are you going to do? These things happen. Don't happen in the governor's mansion, though, do they? That's weird. It's weird that there's no illegal immigrants in the governor's mansion raping children. And I'm sure if that did happen, her response would be, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Things will happen, right? There's not a lot we can do about it. We do what we can. We do our best with security. We got some, vetting process, but, things will happen. No, she's protected. Her voters are protected. Her donors are protected. Her big super PAC donors are protected. Her consultants are protected. You, me, your neighbors, things will happen. Things will happen. That said, I got to hand it to the federal government here because over the weekend, after seeing that video of the illegal immigrants plowing through the border and, creating a ruckus, obviously this was really politically damaging for them. And the Biden administration obviously saw that something had to be done. So Border Patrol took action. And yesterday, they eliminated the possibility that this will happen again. Take a look at this. They put up a sign. And it's not a sign that says, hey, all of you adult males of fighting age, illegal immigrants plowing through our fence and assaulting our Border Patrol agents, demanding entry into this country. Don't do that anymore. No. It's not even that pitiful. It's actually 10 times more insulting than anything else. It's a sign for the media. Members of the media, please stay off the ramp and away from the sliding gate. Do not disrupt U.S. Border Patrol operations by being in the way of transportation vehicles. Do not attempt to make contact with migrants unless authorized by U.S. Border Patrol. You see, they recognize what the real disaster is down at the border. They see what the crisis is. The crisis is reporters like Jenny Terre and Julio Rosas and Bill Malugin and others who were down there recording what's going on and letting the American people see it for themselves. They took action to keep you from finding out what a disaster it is down there. So Marco Rubio was a guest on This Week with David Brinkley, except now David Brinkley is dead, so the best they've got is George Stephanopoulos, and some days he's not there. Then you've got Jonathan Karl. I believe that is the official name of the show. But it's ABC News' version of Meet the Press, and it's terrible. But Marco Rubio, like every other politician in Washington, D.C., thinks that he should go on these Sunday shows so that they can say they went on a Sunday show. And Jonathan Karl asked him if he had any interest in being Donald Trump's running mate. Now, I haven't heard Marco Rubio on anybody's short list for running mate, but, you know, you get a prominent Republican who's run for president and has a profile, and I guess this is the perfunctory thing that you ask. So here's how that questioning went.
There was some reporting this week that you are possibly under consideration to be Donald Trump's running mate. I don't put a lot of stock in this reporting right now, or we're early, but you said it would be an honor to be offered a spot on his ticket. Really?
Yeah, I think anyone who's offered the opportunity to serve this country as vice president should be honored by the opportunity to do it if you're in public service. I'm in the Senate because I want to serve the country. Being vice president is an important way to serve the country. But I've also been clear, I've never talked to Donald Trump. I've never talked to anybody on his team or family or inner circle about vice president. That's a decision he's going to make. He has plenty of really good people to pick from.
I mean, the reason why I ask is, I mean, look what happened to the last guy. A mob stormed the Capitol, literally calling to hang Mike Pence.
Listen,
and Trump defended those chants of hanging Mike Pence.
I will tell you this, that when Donald Trump was president of the United States, this country was safer, it was more prosperous. We had relations, for example, in a part of the world that I care about called the Western Hemisphere that were very strong. We had a lot of good things done there. I think the country and the world was a better place when he was president. And I would love to see him return to the White House in comparison to the guy who's there now, Joe Biden, who's been a disaster economically. Look at the world. Every single day we wake up to a new crisis, to a new conflict. Everything has gone on fire since the time Joe Biden took over. Afghanistan's gone down. Ukraine has been invaded. Now the Philippines and the Chinese are on the verge of something bad happening every single day, not to mention the threats to Taiwan. We have this blow up in Haiti going on in our very own hemisphere. We wake up every single day, terrorist attacks, 9 million people across the border.
I mean,
That's what matters
you're not
to me.
suggesting that's all happening because of Biden.
Absolutely, I am. Absolutely, I'm suggesting it happening because of Biden. He's president, and his weakness and his...
It's because of Biden that Russia invaded Ukraine?
Absolutely.
It's because of Biden that Haiti... Okay,
absolutely. I mean, Putin is sitting there saying, these guys can't even stand up to the Taliban, and they have to fly people hanging off the wings of these airplanes. Now's the time to go.
Yeah, thank you to Newsbusters for that clip. I love that Jonathan Karl is debating this guy, first of all. This is not what a journalist does. Journalists are supposed to ask questions and maybe a follow-up challenge. But how could you possibly blame Joe Biden for that? Who do you work for exactly? Oh, actually, don't answer that. We know very well who you work for. This is what I mean by the fact that they can't handle one voice on these shows, let alone in the newsroom or in the producer's room when they're putting together the show. Can you imagine if one person during the prep for this show actually voiced what Marco Rubio just said? You realize, guys, that part of the reason why Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine is because he saw how weak Biden and the Americans were, right? You do realize that. After the Afghanistan pullout, he knew that he wasn't going to be met with any resistance. In fact, what was Joe Biden's immediate reaction when Vladimir Putin entered Ukraine? Do you remember? Because they've tried to memory hold this. They sent him over there and they put a flak jacket on him and a helmet, and he's out there like Winston Churchill marching with Yaroslavsky. But is that his name? Zelensky. I don't know who Yaroslavsky is, but they're all friends. They put him out there and they treat him like he's Winston Churchill, like he's this wartime president now, and we've got to stand by. Don't forget what his initial, immediate reaction was. Joe Biden called Zelensky and offered him an airplane to fly him the hell out of there. Get out of Kiev. It's over. You've lost. Of course, that's why Vladimir Putin invaded. Who doesn't see that? But there's something else here. Jonathan Karl apparently is picking up where George Stephanopoulos left off with Nancy Mace. This isn't just about asking a question with regard to Donald Trump and getting an answer. It's about getting the answer and then publicly shaming the person for giving the answer that you don't like. Nancy Mace saying that she'll support Donald Trump. And what was George Stephanopoulos' reaction?
Judge for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was
a civil court.
It was a civil court. And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money. And I find that offensive.
I'm asking you
but
about
as a rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape, you're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. For my political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
I mean, you keep saying I'm shaming you.
You are. The question, it is.
It is exactly what he's doing. And I guess this is ABC News's new tactic as journalists when they've got a Republican on. Will you support Donald Trump? Will you be his vice president? Well, yes, I'd be honored to be. Really? Really? I mean, given what happened to Mike Pence, and you can't possibly blame Joe Biden for things going on in Ukraine. And notice something here, because again, it fits with the theme that they are losing. They are losing across the board here. If George Stephanopoulos or Jonathan Karl or any of these people, if they want to make a case for themselves, or even Karine Jean-Pierre, by the way, in the conversation about the border earlier, if they want to make a case for their guy, for their party, for their policies, for their vision, for the good things that their team is bringing to the table, they would. But they don't, because they can't, because they're not. They're not doing anything good. We are way worse off than we were. Marco Rubio just laid it out there for Jonathan Karl. Are you kidding? With this president, with this going on, and this going on, and this going on, and the Western Hemisphere crumbling, and our economy falling apart, and crime in the streets, and the border crisis, and da. And the only response is you can't possibly blame Joe Biden for all of that. And the angry mob was mad at Mike Pence. How could you possibly? It's about shaming the individual and making them uncomfortable for aligning with Donald Trump, because all they've got is demonizing Donald Trump and demonizing you for aligning yourself with Donald Trump, because you dare to look at what things are going on right now and say, yeah, you know what? Even if Donald Trump isn't my favorite, he's a hell of a lot better by 10 times than what we're doing right now. And so that's all they've got. But there's another interesting thing here about the Marco Rubio phenomenon in particular. How could you possibly agree to be his running mate, considering who he is, considering what he did to Mike Pence, considering, don't you remember he used to call you little Marco? He used to make fun of you all the time when you were running against him. How could you he's so crass, he's so mean tweets and da-da-da-da. Why would you agree to be his vice president? Can I remind you what Kamala Harris thought of Joe Biden before she agreed to be his running mate? This was the debate that they engaged in back before the primaries, before Kamala Harris dropped out because she couldn't even make it to Iowa because she was that much loathed and hated and disrespected by her own party and her own voters. And then they jammed her down our throats as being one heartbeat away, one very, very fragile, barely there heartbeat away from the presidency. This was Kamala Harris and Joe Biden before that.
And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden. I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on. Senator Harris, thank you.
Yeah, this was all preview before George Floyd, of course, but of course, it was a Democratic debate, so they had to raise their hatred for police officers and complete and total disregard for victims of crime. But you heard that whole, that you were against busing and you were down with segregationists. And there was a little girl who got bused to her school to integrate her school in California. And that little girl was me. That little girl was me. It was such a genuine moment. It was so natural. It was so spontaneous. So spontaneous that within hours, the Kamala Harris for President website was selling T-shirts. That little girl was me. Shockingly, it didn't catch on. I should have bought one when I had the chance. I would love to wear that shirt around town. The point is, she's at the debate and she has to preface it by saying, now, I don't think you're a racist. But what she was really saying is, I don't think you're a racist anymore, at least outwardly. And she accuses him of basically throwing down with racists and segregationists for being against busing and basically saying, you know, by opposing busing, you were basically telling me to go to the back of the bus. Although, of course, she makes it sound like she would have never gotten a good education. Both of her parents were Berkeley professors. It's so distant. Everything about this is a fraud. My point is, when Joe Biden picked her to be his running mate, do you remember John Karl or George Stephanopoulos or Jake Tapper or Chuck Todd interviewing Kamala Harris saying, why would you agree to be his running mate? I mean, he's a racist segregationist who opposed busing you. That little girl was you. Why would you do this? And of course they didn't. Because she's on their side. Number one. And number two, it's inane. It's stupid. It happens all the time. It goes back to Reagan Bush. It goes back to Kennedy Johnson. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to learn that politicians find a way to follow their political ambitions to win an election and put aside their personal animus. I'm shocked to learn that that happens here. It's so juvenile. It's so beneath our intellects. But of course, this is what passes itself off for tough questioning and tough journalism. And I'd like to give the final word to Marco Rubio. He was on Fox and Friends this morning reacting to this ridiculous response from John Karl, and I think he handled it quite well.
Yeah, right. Jonathan Karl was stunned about your reaction.
About, yes,
ABC.
You know, again, these guys, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the view is that the president doesn't even deserve to have a vice president or anybody else. They've tried to delegitimize President Trump on everything. Right. They don't think he deserves lawyers. They don't think he deserves anything. He doesn't deserve to be on the ballot in their mind.
Well, I'm glad you came in.
Yeah.
There you go. That was a really good answer, a really good response. I mean, from the Trump camp perspective, positively vice presidential. We'll see. Hey, that's it for today's show. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for commenting and liking and subscribing and sharing the video across the board. Really appreciate it. It means the world to us. If you're watching us live on Rumble right now, thank you. Hey, like and subscribe. Get the alert going so you don't miss a show. And if you're watching us after the fact on your favorite YouTube, favorite video platform, probably YouTube, do the same. Why don't you? And swing on over to Rumble and watch us live. We'll be back tomorrow. In fact, we'll see you next time. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor. Call me Larry.